Good day, everyone. My name is Ian Charles Abernica, and I'm here to discuss about the environmental crisis and sustainable development. So, kamo class, if makasugat mo ng word nga environmental crisis, unsa may ma-came up sa inyong mind? No? So, mao na siya ang event sa atong society nga due to some bad human practices, madaot ang ato ang Mother Earth or ato ang nature. And ikaw, if naka sa, shall we say, naka sa urban areas and then moadto ka sa school, then igawas nimo didto na makakita ka dito sa imong giagian like sa sidewalks nga nagkatag ang mga basura, di ba? And mga waste dito nga wala ma-segregate. And then makakita sad ka sa mga vehicles nga ang ilang smoke dito is color black. And then if makalabay ka dito sa ilang mga riverbanks nga nanglutaw ang mga basura, mga plastic wastes. And makahuna-huna ta nga unsa na lang kaya dito ang namuyo nga mga isda, di ba? So mahimo na siyang inhabitant. And for worse, makaingon ta nga mga matay na jud ang mga isda dito tungod sa ka-toxic sa river, no? So about this lesson, ari na to itakol ang mga nagkalain-lain nga mga environmental crisis sa atong kalibutan. And ubani ko ninyo para atong i-discuss ni siya. So the world's leading environmental problems. The first is the depredation caused by industrial and transportation toxins and plastics in the ground, the defiling of the sea, rivers, and water beds by oil spills and acid rain, and the dumping of urban waste. So, mao gyud ni siya no ang pinaka-common nga world's environmental problems. Makabantay tanaw sa Pasig River way back sa una. Karon nalimpyo naman siya. And pag sa una jud is perti jud na siyang pagkahugawa ang mga basura dito nagkalat jud siya no mga nagkalain-lain nga mga basura and makaingon ta nga dili naman jud siya river which is kuan na siya mura na siya kanang dumping site na siya. So mo na no ang pinaka common nga environmental problems which is the waste jud mo na siya. So the second world environmental problems is the changes in global weather patterns. So tungod ana no, the changes in global weather patterns is nana siya flash floods, extreme snowstorms, and the spread of deserts, and the surge in ocean and land temperatures leading to rise in sea levels. So tungod ani malanay na ang mga ice dito sa North and South Pole, no? Ang naa dito mga dagko nga ice malanay na siya which is marise ang water level sa ato ang Earth. And the third world's environmental problems is the overpopulation. Mo jud ni no if in terms of kanang reproduction wala na siya limit mo nang that leads to the overpopulation of the people mo na siya. And the fourth is the exhaustion of the world's natural non-renewable resources from oil reserves to minerals to potable water. So na yung mga natural resources nga non-renewable once magamit na dili na siya kadali-dali o regenerate para magamit pag-usab. And the fifth is a waste disposal catastrophe due to the excessive amount of waste. So, tungod sa kadagan sa mga waste na maglisod na og dispose, no, maglisod na og mga mag-segregate. The sixth is the destruction of million-year-old ecosystems and the loss of biodiversity. So, sa atong environment, no, makuha na jud ang usa jud ni siya nga maguba ang ato ang ecosystem. Ang ato mga nagkalain-lain nga mga species dito is nagkabulag-bulag na due to some reasons nga naguba na nga atong ecosystem. One of the reasons kay kato ang the destruction of coral reefs and deforestation. So kanang deforestation man siya ang mga kahoy nga gipang putol, which is gamiton nila to build a buildings, houses, and then wala na ang atong ecosystem is wala na jud. Then ang mga species dito nga nagpuyo na sila, magkakatag-katag na sila. So the eighth world environmental problems is the depletion of the ozone layer protecting the planet from the sun's deadly ultraviolet rays due to chlorofluorocarbons in the atmosphere. So once manipis na ato ang ozone layer, ang ultraviolet rays sa sun is mapunta na sa tua. I mean, like, exposed na ta, no? Mana na siya. Okay, nipis naman na tong ozone layer. Most na ang makakos sa pagnipis sa ozone layer ang mga nabangag-bangag na ang ozone layer tungod pud sa ato practices like mag-burn tag plastics and kanang mga vehicles nga na ay black smokes and na siya. And the ninth is the deadly acid rain as a result of fossil fuel combustion, toxic chemicals from the erupting volcanoes, and a massive rotting vegetables filling up garbage dumps or left on the streets. Muna siya ang the ninth world environmental problems. Number 10 is the water pollution arising from industrial and community waste, residues seeping into underground water tables, rivers, and seas. So, muna siya no, like I said kanina, is the water pollution jud siya. Muna ang the 10th world's environmental problems. 11 is the urban sprawls that continue to expand as a city turns into a megapolis, destroying farmlands, increasing traffic gridlock, and making smog cloud a permanent urban fixture. So, ano siya ang 11th world's environmental problems. So, the 12 is the pandemics and other threats to public health arising from waste mixing with drinking water, polluted environments that become breeding grounds for mosquitoes and disease, carrying rodents and pollution. Usa sa no ang ato ang ma-intake nga naa siya mga bacteria and disease which is ma-cause siya og pandemic. Shall we say about pandemic which is the COVID-19, no? Ang mga tao dito sa China is nagkaon sila og a certain animal that cause nga naay nagdala og the COVID-19 virus. Mo na siya. And the last one is a radical alteration of food systems because of genetic modifications in food production. Mo na siya ang the last world's environmental problem. We also have this man-made pollution. Humans exacerbate other natural environmental problems. In Saudi Arabia, sunstorms combined with combustion exhaust from traffic and industrial waste has led the World Health Organization to declare Riyadh as one of the most polluted cities in the world. It is this human contribution that has become immediate cause of worry. Coal fumes coming out of industries and settling down in surrounding areas contaminated 20% of China's soil, with the rice lands in Hunan and Zhuzhou found to have heavy metals from the mines and threatening the food supply. So kita jud mga tao no ang usa sa makapat-trigger sa usa ka environmental problem and then mahimo na siyang worse na siya. So mo na siya ang thought. We also have the Greenpeace India, who was reported that in 2015, air pollution in the country was at its worst, aggravated by the Indian government's inadequate monitoring system that there are only 17 national air quality networks covering 89 cities across the continent. Furthermore, 94% of Nigeria's population is exposed to air pollution that the World Health Organization warned as reaching dangerous levels, while Gaborone, the capital of Botswana, is the seventh most polluted city in the world. The emission of aerosols and other gases from car exhaust, burning of food or garbage, indoor cooking, and diesel-fueled electric generators and petrochemical plants are projected to quadruple by 2030, and it is according to the World Health Organization. Waste coming out of coal, copper, and gold mines flowing out into the river and oceans is destroying sea life or permitting the bodies of those which survive with poison, such as mercury and tuna prominently. The biggest copper mine in Malankand in India discharges high levels of toxic heavy metals into water streams, while in China, the tailings from the operations of the Malansi Mankiao ecological mining producing 12,000 tons gold per year have caused pollution and safety problems. Conditions in China have become very critical as the toxic byproducts of production processes are being produced much more rapidly than Earth can absorb. Meanwhile, for over a century, coal mines in West Virginia have pumped chemical-laden wastewater directly into the ground, where it can lead into the water table and turn what had been drinkable water in a poisonous cocktail of chemicals. The system goes back generations and could soon render much of the state's water undrinkable. So, if magkadugay ang panahon, magka-unstable na jud ito ang gibang intake no, such as water, our drinks in every daily life na to. So, pollution in West Africa has affected the atmospheric circulation system that controls everything from wind and temperature to rainfall across huge swaths of the region. The Asian monsoon in turn had become the transport of polluted air. Asian monsoon in turn had become transported to the stratosphere. And scientists are now linking Pacific storms to spread of pollution in Asia. Aerosols is tagged the culprit in changing patterns in Asia and the Atlantic Ocean. Drought all over Asia and Africa accelerated the pace of desertification in certain areas. 20 years ago, there were over 50,000 rivers in China. In 2013, as a result of climate change, uncontrollable urban growth, and rapid industrialization, 28,000 of these rivers had disappeared. So, muna siya no, from 50,000 rivers na out of 28,000 of it kay nawala na siya tungod sa climate change and the industrialization sa ana nga lugar. So, people's health has been severely compromised. An archive article in the journal Scientific American blamed the pollution for controlling to more than 500,000 premature deaths each year at the cost of hundreds of billions of dollars. So, kada day, if na yung mga matay dito tungkol sa climate change, mag-cost siya og huge amount of dollars. Most of na dito ang concerns sa anang lugar. Then we also have the International Agency for Research on Cancer. They blamed air pollution for 223,000 lung cancer deaths in 2010. In Indonesia and Malaysia, the link between forest fires and mortality had been well established. The aforementioned coal mining in West Virginia has also made people sick, some with rare cancers, little kids with kidney stones and premature deaths, and children born with congenital disabilities and adults having shorter life expectancy. So tungod sa air pollution, vulnerable na ang mga tao dito kay mo naman ilaha ang na-adapt nga quality sa air. So air pollution ma-damage ilahang ma-harm ilahang health. And sa ana nga lugar, ang mga tao dito is mag-expect na gid sila nga ang ilang lifespan is dili na sila magdugay. It has been the poor who are most severely affected by these environmental problems. So, expected you know, if pobre ka, ikaw dyan maapektuhan sa tanan-tanan. So, their low income and poverty already put them at a disadvantage by not having the resources to afford good health care, to live in unpolluted areas, to eat healthy food, and others. So, if pobre ka, expected na dyan na nga dili ka kakaon of mga healthy foods. And if naa kay balay, expected na sad na nga najud ka sa polluted areas, no? If naalang kay kwarta, why not? Adto jud ka sa mga limpyo nga palibot, di ba? And magtukod ka dito og mga balay niyan. Magpuyo ka dito nga magmalinawon, di ba? So in the United States, a Yale University research team studying areas with high levels of pollution observed that the greater the concentration of Hispanics, Asians, African Americans, or poor residents in an area, the more likely that dangerous compounds such as vanadium, nitrates, and zinc are in mix of fine particles the breath. So, air pollution, na dyan ay mga substance nga ilahang mahanggab. In India, studies on adult health revealed that 46% in Delhi and 56% in Calcutta have impaired lung function due to air pollution. So expected if naka sa air anang air polluted nga area na jud kay dysfunction sa imong lungs. In China, the toxicity of soil has raised concerns over food security and health of the most vulnerable, especially the peasant communities and those living in factory cities. So, when we say peasant, mo na siya low class status in life mo na siya, no? If na ay royalty ang pinakataas, then ang peasant mo na siya ay pinakaubos. So, the peasants are mostly affected, no, sa ilahang mga sa mga kaubos sa kinabuhi. So, ages ago, China was badly poisoned by canadium. 2 people died and 150 were known to be poisoned. An entire village was abandoned. Hong Kong faces the same problem. In metropolitan Manila, 37% of 4 million people of the population live in slum communities areas where the effects of urban environmental problems and the threats of climate change are also most pronounced. Due to their hazardous location, poor air pollution and solid waste management, weak disaster risk management, and limiting coping strategies of households, Marifé Ballesteros concludes that this unhealthy environment deepens poverty, increase the vulnerable of both the poor and the non-poor living in slums, and excludes the slum poor from growth. So one of the major ironies of urban pollutions is that the necessities that the poor has access are also the sources of problem. So no, if ang uban sad makaingon sad nga ang pobre mo'y makaingon, no? Ang kana siya mga pobre mo'y makaingon sa usa ka shall we say problema. So the main workhorse of the public transport system is the bus. However, because it runs mainly on diesel fuel, it is now considered one of the largest contributors to environmental pollution problems worldwide, no? Mo naman jud na medium of transportation sa tuwa ang bus. Then ang bus gikan man na siya, giran man na siya into fuel, and mao na siya also mo po na hinungdan nga nang mo na makapollute sa air, and mo na siya ang usa sa mga world problems, no? Mo na siya. So this problem is expected to worsen as the middle classes and the elites buy more cars and as the road systems are improved to give people more chance to travel. So mo na no, if dato ka mapalit ka og mga Lamborghinis and other luxury cars, no, and mo na siya the more cars they produce, manufactured, magka-pollute ang air. Na mahima na siyang air pollution. So, that's the thought. The other mode of transportation that the poor can afford is the motorbike, also called the two and three-wheeled vehicles. So kasagaran sa transportation sa like pariha nato, no? Convenience na nato ang magsikad like the two-wheeled vehicle, no? The sikad or the e-bike mo na siya yung tawag ron no sa karon. E-bike na ang kasagaran, wala na tong traditional nga sikad like tindak-tindak siya, no? So mo na siya. So according to the Center of Science and Environment in Delhi, India, two-wheelers form a staggering 75% to 80% of the traffic in most Asian cities. Most motorbikes burn oil and gasoline and emit more smoke, carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, and particulate matter than the gas-only four-stroke engines found in newer motorcycles. Kana siyang mga bike nga luxury bikes, no? Most na siya ang ipanggamit ana is more harmful nga fuels and more harmful nga smokes ang ilang gi-emit. So mana siya. And finally, adding to this predicament is the proliferation of diesel-run cars. These vehicles usually command a lower price because of their durability and low operating cost and hence affordable to the middle class. However, they also release 4 times the toxic pollution as the buses. And I think it's all of my part and I will be ihatag na nako ako ang role as a reporter sa sunod nga reporter, which is Rachel Banaay and Lindy Coronado. Thank you.
Is the catching up. These massive environmental problems are difficult to resolve because governments believe that further countries to become fully developed, they must be industrialized, urbanized, and inhabited by a robust middle class with access to the best of modern amenities. So, the statement suggests that governments view industrialization, urbanization, and the development of a strong middle class as essential steps toward full development. This belief poses a challenge in addressing massive environmental problems, since these developmental goals often contribute to environmental issues. The emphasis on industrialization and urbanization can lead to increased pollution, resource depletion, and habitat destruction. Balancing economic development with environmental sustainability becomes challenging under this perspective. Governments may need to reconsider their approach and prioritize environmentally friendly policies to effectively address these complex issues. A developed society accordingly must also have provisions for the poor jobs in the industrial sector, public transport system, and cheap food. Food depends on a country's free trade with other food producers. It also relies on a modernized agricultural sector in which toxic technologies such as fertilizers or pesticides and modified crops, for example, high-yielding varieties of rice, ensure maximize productivity. The concept of this topic is a developed society should address the needs of the poor through various provisions. So, the first is jobs in the industrial sector. So, it is a developed society should offer ample employment opportunities in the industrial sector. So this is not only contributes to economic growth but also helps reduce poverty by providing jobs for the population. So the second is the public transport system. So it is a established public transport system is crucial for the accessibility and mobility of the citizenships. It enhances connectivity, facilitates communicating, commuting, and plays a role in making opportunities available to be a broader population. So the third is cheap food. It is ensuring affordability and accessibility to food is essential for the well-being to the population. So this could involve facilities that make basic food items affordable for all, especially the economically disadvantaged. So the fourth is the free trade in food production. So, a developed society often engaged in free trade with other food producing nations. So, this promotes a diverse and stable food supply, benefiting both consumers and procedures. So, and next is the modernized agricultural sector. So, the use of modern agricultural practices, including technologies like fertilizers and pesticides, as well as modified crops, aims to maximize agricultural productivity. This can contribute to food security and economic development. So, it also worth noting that approach to choose provisions that vary based on the specific circumstances and policies of each country. So the goal is to create a balanced and exclusive society and addresses the needs of all its members. Next, the model of this ideal modern society is the United States, which until the 1970s was a global economic power with a middle class that was the envy of the world. The United States, however, did not reach this high point without serious environmental consequences. To this very day, it is the worst polluter in the history of the world, responsible for 27% of the world's carbon dioxide emissions. So 60% of the carbon emission comes from cars and other vehicles plying American highways and roads. So the rest from smoke and sweat from coal factories, forest fires, as well as methane released by farms and breakdown of organic matter, paint, aerosol, and dust. So the passage highlights the United States as a model of an ideal modern society, particularly in terms of the economic power and the middle class prosperity until the 1970s. However, it also acknowledges that achieving this status came with significant environmental consequences. The passage states that the United States is considered the worst polluter in history, responsible for 27% of the world's carbon dioxide emissions. So, it further explains that 60% of these carbon emissions come from vehicles on American highways and roads, while the remaining emissions result from sources such as coal factories, forest fires, methane released by the farms, and the breakdown of organic matter, paint, aerosol, and dust. So this information highlights the environmental impact of the industrialization and the reliance on certain practices and technologies that contribute to pollution. It suggests that despite the economic success, the United States has faced challenges in balancing economic growth with environmental sustainability. These ecological consequences, however, are far from the mind of countries like China, India, and Indonesia, which are now in the midst of the frenzied effort to achieve and sustain economic growth to catch up with the West. In the desire to develop and improve the standard of living of their citizens, these countries will opt for the goals of economic growth and cheap energy, which in turn would encourage energy overconsumption, waste, and inefficiency, and also fuel environmental pollution. With their industrial sector still having a small share of the national wealth, these countries will be using first their natural resources like coal, oil, forests, and agricultural products, and minerals to generate a national cathy that could be invested in the industrialization. The summary: the countries like China and India, Indonesia are currently prioritizing rapid economic growth to catch up with developed nations. Their focus in achieving higher living standards for their citizens leads them to prioritize goals of economic growth and cheap energy. However, the passage raises concerns about the potential environmental consequences of this approach. It also suggests that the pursuit of the economic growth, if not accompanied by sustainable practices, may result in energy overconsumption, waste, inefficiency, and environmental pollution. Despite the industrial sectors carrying small share of national wealth in these countries, they are using their abundant natural resources like coal, oil, or forest. So, it also need for their countries to carefully balance economic development with environmental sustainability to avoid long-term ecological sequences. These extractive economies, however, are terminal economies. Their resources, which will be eventually depleted, are also sources of pollution. In Nigeria, Niger Delta oil companies have caused substantial land, water, and air pollution. Nigeria is caught in a bind if it wants to maintain its current economic growth path and sustain its drive for poverty reduction. The very polluting oil exploration and production will continue to be a dominant economic activity. If the United States lets its environment suffer to achieve modernity and improve the lives of its people, developing countries see no reason. Therefore, while they could not sacrifice the environment in the name of progress, this passage raises concerns about the environmental consequences of extractive economies and underscores the difficult choices faced by countries seeking development. The central question involves around the finding a way to achieve economic progress without compromising a long-term environmental sustainability. The next topic is the climate change. Governments have their own environmental problems to deal with, but the state's ecological concerns become worldwide due to global warming, which transcends national boundaries. Global warming is the result of billions of tons of carbon dioxide coming from coal burning power plants and transportation, various air pollutants, and other gases accumulating in the atmosphere. These pollutants trap the sun's radiation, causing the warming of the Earth's surface. With the current amount of carbon dioxide and other gases, this greenhouse effect has sped up the rise in the world temperature. There is now a consensus that the global temperature has risen at a faster rate in the last 50 years and it continues to go up despite efforts by climate change deniers that the world had called off in and around 1998. A global dimension of environmental issues, emphasizing that while governments have their own environmental problems, These concerns become worldwide due to global warming. So, the ecological problems faced by states contribute to a larger global issue that transcends national boundaries. And it also interconnected of the environmental challenges, emphasizing addressing a global warming requires collective efforts beyond individual countries. It dismisses claims of a cooling period and stresses the importance of recognizing and addressing the impact of the human activities in the Earth climate. The greenhouse effect is responsible for recurring heat waves and long droughts in certain places, as well as for heavier rainfall and devastating hurricanes and typhoons in others. Until recently, California experienced its worst water shortage in 1,200 years due to global warming. This change recently windstorms brought rain in the drought-stricken areas. The result, however, is that the state is having some of its worst flash floods in the 21st century. In India and Southeast Asia, global warming altered the summer monsoon patterns, leading to intermittent flooding that seriously affected food production and consumption, as well as infrastructure networks. So the greenhouse effect is the illustrates the far-reaching impacts and causing disruptions in weather patterns, water availability, and the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events globally. It emphasized the urgent need for collective efforts to address climate change and mitigate its consequences. Glaciers are melting every year since 2002, with Antarctica losing 134 billion metric of ice. There is coastal flooding not only in the United States eastern seaboard but also in the Gulf of Mexico. Coral reefs in the Australian Great Barrier Reef are dying, and the production capacities of farms and fisheries have been affected. Flooding has allowed more breeding grounds of disease carriers like the Aedes aegypti mosquito and the cholera bacteria. The passage underscores the broad-ranging consequences of climate change, emphasizing the need of urgent action to address environmental degradation, protect vulnerable ecosystems, and mitigate the impact on both human societies and natural habitats. Since human-made climate change threatens the entire world, it is possibly the greatest present threat to humankind. The statement suggests that human-made climate change poses a significant risk to humanity and it's potentially the greatest present threat. So, the global impact is human-made climate change affects the entire world. Disregarding national boundaries, it has the potential to disrupt ecosystems, alter weather patterns, and impact various aspects of human life, including food production, water availability, and public health.
Good day, everyone. I am Landy Coronado. Now, I will be discussing combating global warming. We all know that global warming is the unusually rapid increase in Earth's average surface temperature, primarily due to the greenhouse gases which released by the people burning fossil fuels. Nowadays, there are a lot of countries recognizing the perils of the global warming. In 1997, there are 192 countries assigned the Kyoto Protocol to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which aims to combat global warming. This total includes 191 states, 189 United Nations member states as well as the Cook Islands and NAU, and one supranational union, the European Union, and Canada renounced that protocol effective on the 15th of December 2012 and ceased to be a member from that date. The protocol set targets but left it to the individual countries to determine how best they would achieve on this specific goal. While some countries have made the necessary move to reduce their contribution to global warming, the United States, the biggest polluter in the world, is not joining the effort. It's because there are countries that is lack of funds to implement the protocol's guidelines. And as the World Bank reported in 2010, the protocol only had a slight impact on reducing global emissions because of the non-binding nature of agreement. Next is the follow-up treaty to the Kyoto Protocol is the Paris Accord or the Paris Agreement. It is negotiated by 195 countries at UN Climate Change Conference in Paris on December 12, 2015. Its goal is to hold the increase in the global average temperature, but unlike the Kyoto Protocol, which has predetermined carbon dioxide emission limits per country, the Paris Accord provides more leeway for countries to decide on their national targets. This agreement largely passed as international legislation because it emphasizes consensus building. But this does not mean that this agreement will be more successful to the Kyoto Protocol. In South Africa, communities engage in environmental activism to pressure industries to reduce emissions and to lobby parliament for the passage of pro-environment laws. And in the El Salvador, 1,000 communities push for crop diversification. It is a reduction of industrial sugarcane production to protect an endangered sea species from devastating effects of commercial fishing. And this is also protects the lowlands being eroded by the deforestation and the inconsistent release of water from a nearby dam. There are also universities partner with governments in producing attainable programs of controlling pollution. The University of Chicago's Energy Policy Institute sent teams to India to work with the government and helps to protect that strike a balance between urgently needed economic growth and improve air quality. In Japan, the population pressure forced the government to work with civil society groups to get the parliament to pass. 14 passed at once and it is called as the pollution diet of 1970. Even if it's not really a successful regulations, but Japan today is part of the least polluted cities in the world. Nowadays, it's inevitable for everyone to set up these kinds of coalitions. But at this point, the government still hesitate to do things that can fight the pollution. And when the international organizations still lack the power to enforce anti-pollution policies, social coalitions that being in village associations, academia, the media, local and national government, and even international aid agencies, they work together because this is the only way to reverse the worsening situation. Climate change is the most significant problem facing the world. Global warming is increasing day by day. So, our role as a citizen of the world, we must find solutions in the specific problem. We are all part of a world that is increasingly vulnerable. The carbon dioxide emitted in one country may have severe effects on the climate of one another. Our world will face undesirable consequences, but we have no choice but to find the specific solutions in this environmental problem.